All right, you know what I'm saying? So, boom. All right, we're back at it again. This will be my second video. You guys don't know it, but I just recorded my previous one right before this one. So, have that if you will. We're going to talk a little bit about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. This guy, he just goes and hops off the sauce. He's lost about 50 or 60 pounds of solid ass muscle. And everybody now is making it seem as if he's on drugs or as if he is, in ill health. It's completely the opposite. All he did was get off the fucking sauce, man. All he did was get off the gas. He's in his 50s. He honestly probably shouldn't have been taking steroids at this stage or point in his life anyway. The guy has a family. This is not a bad thing. This is a good thing, so I'm happy for him. He actually looks better, if you ask me. He was probably going to have a heart attack at some point if he didn't stop what he was doing. I honestly didn't. I wasn't sure how long he thought he was going to be able to keep this up for anyway, man. It's also a good thing, I feel like, because now maybe he can possibly transition into some different roles where he has to kind of take himself a little bit more serious rather than just a big muscly, just kind of meathead, kind of comedian type, whatever. This kind of forces him to be a different version of The Rock. You know what I mean? It almost kind of reminds me of the way he looked back in like '07 or whatever when he had kind of slimmed down a little bit. But I'm actually kind of happy for the guy. He's made a right decision for his health before his health went left. You know what I mean? The Rock. I see what's his name, Greg Doucet on YouTube. He says basically The Rock had to become the Pebble because you know what? He'd rather be the Pebble than be the fucking Tombstone. You know what I mean? So good for him. But since everyone is kind of talking about The Rock and his whole weight loss and everything like that, and also a thing too is I see The Rock. This motherfucker, he's getting to the point now where it almost feels like he lies as much as Hulk Hogan. Not nearly as much because Hulk Hogan lied from, the Hulk Hogan's been lying since before I was born, basically, right? But The Rock, he's getting to the point of just pure, preposterity or whatever, is just completely preposterous is what I'm trying to say here. Just the kind of shit that flies out of this guy's mouth, basically. You know what I mean? I think he said that he had slimmed down purposefully so he could play Mark Kerr in this new movie he has coming up. Have you seen him in the new movie? He's as jacked as ever, man. He's jacked as fuck. Like, obviously, you didn't slim down until after the filming gets stopped, right? So I don't know if The Rock thinks we're all dumbasses, but that's just kind of the way he seems to treat us. I'm not going to lie. He acts like he can just fucking go to In-N-Out Burger 3 times within the span of like a couple years, and it's still up on your fucking Instagram the first time you went, and he thinks that we just won't notice or won't, he must think we're all just a bunch of dumbasses, bro. Either that or he's just so disconnected that he has no idea what it's like to even goddamn breathe normal air these days. So, but as far as that goes, I don't hate The Rock as a person. I get the whole that the whole narrative around him has changed over the past some odd years, kind of starting with the whole Vin Diesel thing. And it's kind of just snowballed from the, DC stuff and, him coming back and taking Cody's spot at WrestleMania last year, which, by the way, The Rock, let me set this straight. The Rock, all he did was make that WrestleMania build much more interesting. That's all he did, right? All we would have gotten was basically the same Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, rinse and repeat feud that we got the year earlier, but The Rock actually spiced things up and he made that actually feel like a WrestleMania main event, bro. It would not have if it were just the same goddamn garbage that we got the year earlier. But, I get that a lot of people just don't really think of the guy too fondly these days, but I'm not here to talk about The Rock as a person because I don't know the man. I don't know him, so this is just kind of my own assumption here. But I don't think that The Rock personally is like this evil dude. Is he an egotist? Is he a sellout? Is he a lot of the things that people call him online? Maybe not. That's not really for me to say. Like I said, I've never met the guy. I don't know him, right? So I don't know what his thought process is. I don't know what his decision-making process is. I'm sure he has a lot of different people in his ear telling him a lot of different things. But at his core, I don't think The Rock is this. I don't think he's this like evil. He's not the type to like go and steal candy from a baby or anything like that. Obviously, I don't think he's this bad dude, so to speak. He's not like I don't think he's goddamn, evil incarnate, basically. But The Rock as an entertainer is one of the best maybe there's ever been. I don't know about anyone else, but every now and then I kind of get into this. I kind of go down this rabbit hole of just watching old wrestling clips from whatever period. Or, I think a lot of people, we kind of go down these rabbit holes of watching old Attitude Era clips and stuff like that. And I didn't grow up during that time. So I do get a kick of just going back and watching some late 90s, early 2000s wrestling, type stuff when it was really at its peak. And I happened to go back and watch a lot of The Rock stuff, man. I'm not going to lie. And let me also just make a point of this as well, that let's be real, man. You want to talk about growing up and realizing things that you didn't know when you were younger? Growing up is realizing that The Rock was actually a bigger fucking star than Stone Cold Steve Austin was. All right. I get that a lot of people kind of get this whole thing misconstrued, that Austin was the guy until he had to go have neck surgery, and then The Rock kind of stepped in and became the guy after the fact. But I've actually been digging into some stuff and watching some stuff and just kind of reading up on some stuff, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And all the facts point to The Rock actually being bigger than Austin, at least from I would say mid 99 onward, bro. Because when you look at, if we're being completely 1000% honest, The Rock probably would have passed Stone Cold earlier. He probably would have surpassed him. He was actually gaining a lot of momentum in late 98, right before they turned him heel. And they had to turn him heel because, Austin was the top babyface, and you know what I'm saying? So they did what they had to do there. We got Rocky Austin at WrestleMania 15, it was, right? But The Rock, The Rock was more over as a fucking heel even than any babyface in the past, probably 20 years, man. Even when he was a bad guy, bro, people love the fucking Rock. You know what I'm saying? When you look at the career that this guy had, I don't think anyone will ever have a career like that again. Not in wrestling. Maybe, entertainment is a different story, but at least not in wrestling will someone ever have a career like that again. The Rock is number one. The Rock is literally, he's head and shoulders above Austin for sure. He's maybe the only person you can compare him to is possibly prime Hulk Hogan, but even then, The Rock is still bigger than Hogan. And again, I'm not even taking into account his Hollywood mainstream status, which he would achieve years later. But just looking at The Rock in the late 90s, early 2000s, man, the guy was in 2000. He was only 28, right? He was only in his fucking 20s during the Attitude Era. Think about how crazy that is. The guy debuts at Survivor Series 96. Within a couple years, he's already WWF champion and one of the biggest stars in the business. You know what I'm saying? 2 years later, Survivor Series, the Deadly Games tournament, he becomes champion. Literally 2 years into his WWE career, basically into his wrestling career almost, he's already one of the biggest stars in the business. All it took was for this guy to turn heel and start being himself, and he just caught fire we've never fucking seen before. It's crazy, right? And unlike people like Steve Austin, unlike people like Hulk Hogan, unlike people like Ric Flair, unlike people like fucking Triple H, all these guys who, and again, I'm not knocking these guys, but all these guys who had to pay their dues, who had to wrestle on fucking, in minor, small territories and shit like that, all these guys who had to bust their ass in the business for sometimes a decade or more before they made it to the top. The Rock, he nepotismed his ass into the big leagues, and then within a couple years became hotter than anyone had ever imagined or ever seen, right? And he was only in his 20s. He wasn't injury prone, unlike Steve Austin. He was racially ambiguous, which I think a lot of people kind of take for granted, bro. Nobody really knew what The Rock was back in those days. You didn't know if he was a black man. You knew he wasn't a white man. You knew he was possibly mixed of some kind, but nobody knew what race The Rock was. They never treated him like he was white. They never treated him like he was black. Hell, even back then, you didn't even know that he was Samoan because it wasn't something that they were saying all the fucking time. You knew his dad was Rocky Johnson, but nobody knew who the fuck Rocky Johnson was, bro. Nobody would know who Rocky Johnson is if it's not for The Rock, if we're being 1000% honest here. So that worked in his favor, right? And again, if you want to compare Rock to Steve Austin, I see people all the time. They still like to tout this, you know what I'm saying, misinformation that WWE has fed them over the years that Steve Austin was the biggest star of all time. That's not true. That's simply not true. If you go back and actually look at the numbers, if you go back and look at the ratings, the pay-per-view buy rates, you know what I'm saying, the house show attendance, if you go back and look at everything, you know, just for the facts and leave your opinion out of it, bro, I was actually shell-shocked to find out myself that Austin was or The Rock, rather, was the bigger star. You know what I mean? Why do you think it was The Rock versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18 and not Steve Austin? I know Steve Austin says, oh, he was offered the match, but he turned it down first or whatever. No, The Rock was always the one who was in the works to face Hulk Hogan. It was never Stone Cold. Why do you think it was The Rock who passed the torch to Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam in 2002, and Steve Austin was just scheduled to lose to Brock Lesnar, that is, in a random throwaway match on Raw, which I get was a bad call because it is Steve Austin. You don't do that to a guy of that caliber. But why do you think The Rock was put in those spots? Why do you think he was the first ever draft pick in WWF history? Why do you think these things are, bro? It's because The Rock was him. He was the fucking guy. He's just on another level. You know, again, if we're being real, if we're being honest with ourselves here, I go back, like I said, from time to time and watch old wrestling stuff, wrestling promos, wrestling clips or whatever. I go back and watch some Steve Austin stuff, man. I go back and watch some, you know, like I said, some Attitude Era stuff. But I just find myself being more drawn to The Rock, you know? Like if we're being real, bro, if we're being fucking real, I feel like the smarky opinion is for people to say, oh, Steve Austin was number one. Like even there are signs even that Hulk Hogan in 98 was arguably still a bigger draw than Steve Austin. Like Hollywood Hogan and WCW in 98, there are signs that even, you know, Goldberg was bigger than Steve Austin in 98. I'm not trying to use this platform to just bash Stone Cold, but the fact is he was a megastar, but he was, they make it seem like he's the megastar of megastars, but in reality, Hogan was also a megastar. Goldberg at one point was also a megastar, and The Rock was literally the fucking guy, bro. And that's the thing that I feel like really rubs people like Triple H the wrong way. That's one of the things that I feel like really rubs Shawn Michaels the wrong way. Like a lot of these guys, like even Steve Austin, bro, he was pissed off in 2002 just at the fact that The Rock was the one who was getting positioned as the top guy. The Rock was the one who was really getting, you know, he was really the one who was being put front and center. You know what I mean? And I feel like Steve Austin, he just didn't like that fact. He couldn't handle it. You know, Stone Cold, he walks out a couple times. Like everyone talks about the first time Austin walked out, or no, I'm sorry. That was actually the second time he had walked out when he was supposed to lose to Brock. But he actually had walked out previous to that. I think after WrestleMania 18, he just didn't like his spot and the way he was being used and the fact that he was playing second fiddle to The Rock. Like even during the Attitude Era, while Steve Austin was feuding with Vince and Taker and he was the WWF champion, The Rock was feuding with fucking Billy Gunn, but yet still drawing the highest rated segment of whatever show he was on because The Rock is that fucking guy, you know? And I'm not trying to turn this into a goddamn stroking session, but again, bro, the facts are the facts, right? I'm not even saying The Rock is my personal favorite of all time, but I think if we're keeping it 100% a thou wow, you know what I mean? We all find ourselves just inherently being more drawn to The Rock than we do Stone Cold. You know, I would rather go back and watch Rocky maybe 8 or 9 times out of 10 over Austin, and I like Austin, but if I had to have one over the other, I would be a Rock guy. You know what I mean? And I get it. A lot of people hate to admit these things now because just how the narrative, how the coin has flipped, you know what I'm saying, how the script has flipped on people's opinions of this guy. But, you know, at the end of the day, The Rock is still one of the most entertaining, you know, he's probably the most entertaining thing you've ever seen in wrestling. People say, oh, he only had, you know, 5 moves or whatever it was. Who gives a fuck, man? Who cares, right? There's no metric to judge a fake wrestling match on other than how much it draws, and nobody drew more than that fucking guy. The ratings were peak when The Rock was the guy and Steve Austin wasn't even on the fucking show because he was injured. So what does that tell you, right? The Rock was the main character of the Attitude Era, and The Rock comes back last year to save us all from this goddamn just mediocrity of Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, that is. And I like Roman Reigns, but again, bro, you can take the biggest star of today and put him next to The Rock, and it's not even a fucking comparison. It's almost laughable. Just seeing Rock and Roman in the ring together, bro. Like, the aura scales are massively tipped in The Rock's favor. You know what I mean? And I'm going to I'm gonna put it like this. I'm gonna put it like this, right? Even The Rock in his 50s, I would still watch him more over than basically 90 or 95% of the roster. The only person who could, I feel like there may be a few people who could stand toe to toe with The Rock and maybe match him slightly. Cena, back in their feud, back in 2012, back in 2011, 2012, when those guys were rivals of one another going into WrestleMania, Cena, he stood his ground quite well. I will say Cena stood his ground quite well. The Rock is obviously comparable, or Stone Cold, I should say, is comparable to The Rock, but not bigger than The Rock, but still comparable. Hogan, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, Hogan probably at his peak maybe would rival The Rock, but there's not many others, There's not many others. These are just the facts. You don't have to agree with it. You don't really have to like it. But again, growing up is realizing that The Rock is actually the biggest star that the WWE has ever produced. Like I said, maybe Hogan, maybe Rock, but probably The Rock, right? They just hate to admit it. They just hate to say this and promote it because he left them for Hollywood. So they would rather say that Steve Austin's the biggest of all time just because Stone Cold has more or less been in the WWE family, since he retired. So, that's pretty much all I got to say about that. I'm going to go ahead, peace the fuck up out of here, and catch you all